The drafting process, I think, is something that started a long time ago, actually in 2012. And obviously, it covers a lot of different stakeholder institutions, government institutions. Ministry of Labour, there are issues to do with Ministry of Local Government, the Ministry of Finance is an interested party, Ministry of Community Development is a main partner, Ministry of Labour is also involved, and we've got a number of also quasi-government institutions, NAPSA, Workers' Compensation, Public Service Pensions Fund, and all the other schemes that are actually interested in the product. So coordination has been, in a way, we had to coordinate, but I think we have had challenges because, as I mentioned, there are so many other players and stakeholder institutions. But at the end of it all, obviously we started moving together, we formed committees, and at least we started agreeing on certain things. But all in all, what I can say is there's been a lot of also shifts with regards to how we move forward, with regards to policy, with also regards to the human resources involved. We find some people have been appointed elsewhere, some people get jobs elsewhere. Meanwhile, you've been using these people and they knew a lot of the process, and so it takes you back a bit. It's been quite emotive sometimes, quite interesting sometimes. Sometimes you don't receive the cooperation, you send out things for comments, you don't get the feedback, you have to keep chasing. I would say the backbone was, I think, the department, the ministry, in terms of trying to coordinate the others. It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy. But all I can say also is that I think maybe the interview has come a bit prematurely, because I think what I've learned also is that it's never predictable what the next steps are. Currently, we've drafted the bill, we have the draft bill, but it has not yet been approved by Cabinet. So a lot of things can happen in between now and the time at which it goes to Parliament. We did hear the President say we want to actually introduce this to this session of Parliament. So it's receiving that support, I think, from all the key stakeholders, our principals. And I think one thing is that we've had good support from the permanent secretaries and the ministers. I think the long and the short, I think that's been our interaction with the bill. So one of the lessons that has been learned is if you're trying to draft a law, especially on social protection, it's better that the same team that is drafting, you incorporate the same team that is the team of technocrats that is basically developing the content, the technical content for the reforms, the technical reports, incorporates also the drafters, so that as the technocrats are meeting and coming up with certain proposals in terms of reform options, even the drafters are picking it up from there, and they are part of the room and they understand what you are talking about, and they begin drafting, rather than a situation where you allow the technocrats to work alone and then submit instructions to the drafters. Normally there is a mismatch. Once the drafters draft without being a part of the technical team, they normally draft things that you don't end up agreeing with as the technocrats. But I think working together, I think yields better results. And this is what we basically did. We started with a situation of giving instructions to justice with regards with what we had. But we felt that the final draft bill that they would come up with was not really representing our views, the stakeholders' views. So then we moved into a situation whereby we began with sitting down together with the drafters and formulating now the policy and the reform options with the drafters. And we've discovered that it yields much, much better results, because then they'll pick things the way you would want them to be picked. So that's basically one of the lessons. The other lessons, I would say, the format in which you actually implementing reforms and doing the drafting. For me, it's better if it's more of a project kind of approach, or an approach where a commission is set up, an independent body which is budgeted for. But how we've been doing it here is that us who are affected, us government officers and the rest of my team, I think from the social security institutions and other ministries, are also government officers, and they're affected by the policy changes. So you find that as you are driving the process, there's quite a lot of resistance and friction, and it delays the whole process. But if you have an independent commission and a dedicated member of staff who are actually detached from their offices, they don't have to say, no, I have to run to the office and do this for the minister. They are dedicated to the whole of this project. I think it would work better. than just doing it haphazardly. You call in people, and also it has to have another lesson is the resources. It has to have a dedicated budget. Right now we've been having to wait for Ministry of Finance to release funding before you for instance have a workshop or do certain pieces of work. But thank God, I think the ILO has been coming to our rescue. But I think the resource has been one of the challenges where you don't have ready money. You need to wait for funding from the ministry responsible for finance, and then that's when you make a little bit of some progress. Then again it stores, and the better approach would be a financed dedicated team, a project team, or a commission with dedicated members of staff. So those are basically the major lessons that I would pick from the process. One of the challenges, as I said, for instance, is an issue of giving instructions to to the drafters. But then the solution would be you sit down with the drafters together as one team, and that has worked very well. Another issue is involvement of the key principal players, the ministers. There's certain times when you come up with certain glitches where policies are not clear. What really has to happen, you only see it when you're actually drafting that there's no clarity on this particular item, is to involve the ministers themselves. Call for meetings, caucus of the meetings of the relevant ministries, the ministers, walk them through what the challenges are, and you find that they offer you the actual policy directive in that area. It has worked also very well, just involving the actual policy makers themselves before moving ahead. That has worked also very well. There's quite a lot on the table that we can basically share with the rest. One of the issues is involvement of the key stakeholders. Don't leave them behind so much such that at the end of it, or by the time you're trying to bring them on board, they are basically lost with what you're trying to do. So the key stakeholders are important. In this case, this bill has been very big. It has had many ministries. So all of them had to consult. They have different stakeholders. As labor, it's tripartite. We're looking at the employers, we're looking at the workers representative, the trade unions, as well as the employers federation. Those are our key stakeholders that we need to consult. But for others like health, they need to consult all those other players under the health. For community development, they have to consult Association of Disabilities and child associations and all those other key stakeholders to just come to an understanding. So one of the lessons is that you have to engage them early as you are starting, not really at the end of it or when something has been drafted, but you have to involve all of them very early. Coordination is another item that is very important. You have to designate an institution or a body to coordinate, and it's better if the institution is higher than the other institutions, because then they cooperate with you. Otherwise, if you're at the same level, you call for the meeting, your colleagues do not come, and it keeps dragging the process. But if you have a higher body, like maybe office of the vice president or cabinet office, you anchor the whole of the process into that office so that all of you can actually contribute very effectively in the process. So those will be some of the key lessons that other countries can learn from us.